The NASCAR weekend at COTA has come and gone, and for the third year in a row, in one way or another, it was incredibly memorable. COTA every year has been, and for that reason, I personally think it should be a staple of the Cup schedule. But just because it's memorable does not mean that it all was good. And today, I want to go over everything, because I think there was a lot of great that came from COTA. The only problem is there also were a lot of faults or bad that came from COTA all at the end. So, much like the race, we're going to go over all the great stuff that happened early on. And then we're going to get into those faults the race had at the end. Starting off again with the great. There were no stage yellows. I'm somebody who I wouldn't say is a full-on traditionalist fan, but definitely has leanings and tendencies towards that. And having no stage yellows was one of the big things for me that I've wanted for a long time. It's been the biggest thing I've hated about stage racing, stopping the race artificially so you can get more commercial time in and more restarts in. Let's be real, that's the only reason they did it, and they justified it with points. Well, fans for years have been against it, and it showed to be horribly detrimental at the road courses. So, starting this season, the road courses have stages with no stage yellows. And to me, it gave a natural flow to the race. The race itself, yes, had strategies built towards getting stage points even if it stayed green, but it still also had the ability to have lasting impacts on the race that weren't completely detrimental, like pitting before a stage caution and using that to get a win rather than going for the stage point itself. It felt like the race moved faster, and the drivers, teams, and fans at home all had to keep up with the action. And to me, that is helpful for NASCAR. NASCAR is a sport built on speed. Why would you want to slow it down? Keep the pace up. It's what makes NASCAR amazing in a lot of ways. It showed that NASCAR doesn't need these manufactured yellows to be good. The racing product itself speaks for itself. And to me, that is a great thing that can be honestly parlayed into the rest of the season and seasons to come. It should be a permanent thing at all tracks. And also, like I talked about before, strategy was a big factor that was really great about this race. With no stage yellows, teams were more opened up for new strategies. Again, they did go for stage points, some of them did, and it cost them in the long run with the race. Some of them went for the race and it cost them in stage points. But they didn't know a caution was coming out, so if a caution flew the right way, a team that didn't go for stage points could have been screwed, or a team that did go for stage points could have gotten a bit of a boost up and still got max points on the day. The closing laps before Brad Keselowski's caution that we'll get to in a bit was a race of fuel mileage, and it was great to watch because there were 4 drivers who truly had asserted themselves as those going for the win. You had the leader, Tyler Reddick, who was a lap short on fuel, same with second place William Byron. They were in full fuel conservation mode and doing everything they could to save fuel while keeping everybody else behind them. In third, you had Ross Chastain. Chastain thought that he was to the good, the team at least did, but they didn't know for sure. They were borderline, and it was pretty apparent as he was definitely being a little more conservative than we're used to Ross Chastain being. And in fourth, we had Daniel Suarez. Suarez was well to the good on fuel, and it was apparent. He was charging up through the pack, and honestly, if it went green, he probably would have had a great shot at winning it. He was up to second by the time that Keselowski's caution came out, and with the top guys saving fuel, he could have easily ran them harder and had them run out of fuel and won that way. So there was a lot that was really fun with this. And when it came to strategy too, there was pitting strategy, 2 or 3 stop races. And to me, it reminded me of 2014 at Sonoma when Carl Edwards, I believe, took a 2-stop strategy to win. Jeff Gordon in second had 3, and Dale Jr. had 5. So this to me is something that NASCAR has really excelled at because of the length of these races. And if you're going to have the race lengths be the way they are, you might as well play to the advantage and make the most entertaining show possible. And in a lot of ways, that was helped by an engaging broadcast. Yes, there were still issues. I'm not saying that this broadcast was great or was mid to late 2000s, even early 2000s Fox status, but I will say it was probably the best broadcast overall that I can remember watching in the last 4 or 5 years. Honestly, since I've been on YouTube, Fox has been getting worse, and, well, this is about the best broadcast I've seen in a while, and I think it's because it plays into a lot of their strengths of strategy, as well as talking about a race that's more like old NASCAR. You had some pretty good in the booth. Joy and Clint Boyer were probably the best they've been all season. Kurt Busch had some great insight and emotion with the finish. And Chase Elliott, I thought, had good insight from a recent champion perspective. And then the last really great thing that was shown by this race is that there can be clean restarts. Some of the opening restarts saw the same 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wide racing that we saw at the end of the race, but there were no spins and minimal contact. It shows that when these guys try to race clean, they can, and they can do it exceptionally well. Now, up to Brad Keselowski's caution with around 12 laps to go, I would assert that this was one of the best races I have ever seen. Definitely race of the year material, and like I said, think that the strategy, the great racing product, the relatively clean racing product, all of this with the broadcast came together to having one of the most enjoyable shows in a long time. And then, well, the not great stuff happened. Everything after Brad Keselowski's caution to me could be wiped from my memory and I'd be happy. The finish of the race, for instance. There was basically a demolition derby. It was like watching you in a video game say screw it and dive into the corner with the UPS truck underneath 3 wide battles at Martinsville. That's basically what it felt like watching the end of this race. It was the mentality that 20 tires are better than 4. You might as well use everybody up. It reminded me a lot of what we saw at the Indy Road Course last year, which many people rightfully had stated was an abomination to that historic track. There is no reason that the Cup drivers should be racing like this, and at some point, if NASCAR really is serious about cost-cutting measures, they may need to step in on over-aggressive driving. Not to the level they were in the 2000s, where if you bump somebody too much, they would send you down pit road, but to a degree that drivers know, hey, there is a line, and if I step over it, it's going to cost both me for the championship and probably my team with a lot of money. There's something that needs to be done because we can't keep having what is the next detriment in this race, and that is endless overtimes. Listen, I know a lot of fans love finishing the races under green, and I know I'm probably in the minority on this, but sometimes finishing under caution may be the better alternative. Not because it's more exciting. I will fully say it is not. It is not more exciting to just go to the scheduled distance if there's a caution with 2 to go and there was a good race heating up. And I would say everyone would say the same thing right up until the 9 to go or so onwards, where we just saw constant crashing and constant disrespect at a level that should not be at a professional level of auto racing. The no respect kept causing the crashes and kept extending the race. The race, because of this, went for an extra 30 to 40 minutes and probably crashed a good 10 to 15 extra cars that didn't need to be crashed, which is kind of ironic seeing how NASCAR says they want to have cost-cutting measures, but will put in incentives basically to drive like an idiot, because as long as you don't get spun out, you're probably going to win out of it. And it made an event that, like I said, was race of the year material, and honestly one of the best road course races I think any of us have ever seen, go from that to a good race that at the end left you with a bad taste in your mouth. That is a huge heel turn. It was almost to the point of pure absurdity. Luckily, though, the guy who deserved to win in Tyler Reddick got the win. And it really made some of the best drivers in the world, the best stock car drivers in the world for sure, look like a bunch of chumps. And no one else, I think, looked worse at the end of this race than Daniel Suarez. And this is the last big thing that I am very much against here. Suarez had been up front, but he was taken out in these endless overtimes. I'd say he would be completely justified in being pissed off by this. And for this, he charged up past half the field on the cooldown lap, and he nearly hits many cars on the way up, and then slams into his teammate Ross Chastain entering the pits, and then he slammed into Alex Bowman on pit road with officials and people on a very narrow pit road at that. And to me, that is unacceptable. That needs to, at the very least, be a fine, probably be a points penalty. I know a lot of people said suspension. I don't think they're going to suspend him based on prior precedent, but I do think that they should and will penalize Suarez for this. Now, with that, I'm going to pass it on to you and ask, what did you think of COTA? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you like and hate it like I did, where you loved part of it and disliked the other part of it? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members, so many new channel members at that, for your support. And also be sure to watch the NASCAR Weekly Podcast this Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on my channel. We will be talking about all of this. So until next time, have a good one.